Okay, good morning, everybody. Sorry, I wasn't quite ready there. Haven't quite woken up yet this morning. I think everything is ready now. Okay, so yes, good morning. And so today I'm reviewing three books by Cheon Myeong-kwan. Am I ready? Yes, I am. Whale, Modern Family, and Homecoming. So we're going to start with Whale and then Modern Family, and then finish up with a short story called Homecoming. So I will try and show you what each of these books offers, and maybe which one you should pick up first if you're thinking of getting into some Chon Myong-kwan. So Whale is a very bold and original work of magical realism about hustlers and ambition during Korea's boom years in the last century. Modern Family is a more contemporary work. It's a darkly comic family novel about three adult children who move back in with their mother and learn how money, pride, and disappointment strain a family household. And then finally, Homecoming is a dystopian short story in which employment decides who gets to count as a citizen, and the idea of home becomes a dream that's just beyond the reach of most ordinary people. So, hopefully, by the end of the video, you will know the tone, the strengths, and which book sounds best for you. So, hello everyone. I'm Barry. This is Soul Book Club. Thanks for watching another review. Okay, so first of all, let's start with Whale. Whale, the English translation was published in 2022 by Europa Editions, and it was translated into English by Chi-young Kim. Chi-young Kim, of course, also is a very successful translator. She also did Please Look After Mom by Shin Kyung-suk, and she's done a few Kim Young-ha novels and many, many more. And the Korean title for whale is Kore, the Korean word for whale. And Cheon is a very popular writer here in Korea. His career spans over 2 decades now. He debuted back in 2003 with a highly regarded and much loved story called Frank and Me. That hasn't been fully translated yet, but you can find an excerpt of it, I think, online somewhere. Anyway, that story won Chon the Moonhak Dongney New Writer Award, also in 2003. And then he won the much coveted Kusang Young Writer Award. And this kind of solidified his status as a prominent and up and coming writer in Korean literature. After the 2000s. And then in 2004, this was when he published Whale. And when Whale was published in Korean, it became a kind of a sensation, really, a literary sensation. It was really one of the most talked about novels of the year. And just in general, around about that time, it was extremely highly praised. It became a bestseller, and it won the prestigious Moonhak Dongney Novel Award. And since then, he's published several more novels and short story collections. But he doesn't actually, it's quite a little annoying actually, he doesn't have a huge amount of other stuff in translation. So only one of the other novels called Modern Family, which I'll review, and not that many short stories. So Homecoming, which I'll talk about today as well, is available. But it's a shame. I wish that more of his stories and novels were available. So hopefully we'll get more. But anyway, he's also a highly accomplished script writer. And he's also made a quite significant mark on Korean cinema as well as Korean literature. And in the past several years, especially with the translation of Whale, his work, mainly Whale, has been translated into various languages, so English, French, Chinese, Russian, Vietnamese, and probably a few more. But that sort of global reach, I think it just highlights the universal themes and just the very compelling narratives and storytelling that's present in all of his writing. And Whale is probably still his, I mean, it is still his most notable work, and definitely his most notable work in translation. But it's an excellent example of a storytelling ability. So Whale is just a very, just a deeply enjoyable work of literary fiction. It really is just an absolute blast of a novel to read, without wanting to be too literary critic about it. Just a really enjoyable book, and it was. Oh, there was a very obvious comparison, and if you've read the book, you'll understand why. But it was compared to Colombian writer Gabriel Garcia Marquez's 100 Years of Solitude, and I suspect he probably had that in mind when he was doing this. Right, I wouldn't be surprised if he thought, like, what I'm going to do for the Korean century, the Korean 20th century. What Marquez did in his book. It's not. I'm not saying it's derivative or that's reductive in any way, but just that's kind of what it seems like he was going for. And so Whale it's a similarly magical realist novel. At time, it's like almost like a fairy tale fable, like satire, evocation of modern Korean history of the previous century, and it's told through this multi-generational saga of three women and this sort of massive array of supporting characters, and it just spans like this big chunk of Korean history from the 20th century. So let me just briefly summarize the plot and some of the key themes that Cheon is exploring in Whale, and I'll try and mention how it reflects Korean history in the 20th century. So the story mainly focuses on the story of Gumbok. And as the novel begins, Gumbok is a young woman, and she leaves her rural village to seek her fortune in the big city. And Gumbok is a resourceful and ambitious woman, and she quickly rises through the ranks of society. So she comes from a very poor, impoverished background and rises up through society to become a successful businesswoman and a landowner, a business owner. However, this success comes at a very steep price, and she's forced to make some very significant sacrifices. And these are personal sacrifices and professional sacrifices. And through her story, and then later her daughter Chunhee's story, Chon explores a number of very, big themes, complex themes, complicated sort of ideas about Korean history. But we see a lot here about gender roles, about social class, and about the nature of power. Might be one of the most interesting aspects of the story. So Gumbok is, a brilliant literary creation. Maybe at times some readers might think that she's a kind of a challenging protagonist. At times she can be highly admirable, but also in some ways is just extremely and at times quite unpleasantly flawed. But just a fantastic creation. I enjoyed every minute that she's on the stage. It's fantastic. But she's a strong, independent woman, and she refuses to be defined by traditional gender roles. However, she's also extremely ruthless, just cutthroat, ruthless, and ambitious. She's quite happy, perfectly willing to do whatever it takes to get ahead. And this includes betraying anyone, betraying all the people around her, abusing her daughter in the most awful way, and just generally just stepping on anyone and everyone in this sort of, desperate, deranged climb up the ladder, up society. And in her story, we see this sort of reflection of the social and economic changes that South Korea went in the post Korean War period, and her rise to power kind of mirrors. You can make the argument it's the rise of South Korea as a nation. However, the novel also highlights the dark side of this economic boom. This is a familiar topic in Korean literature. And because her success is built on this exploitation of others, right? She rises to the top by exploiting and cheating and ripping off other people, manipulating everyone around her. So where does Whale fit with regards to some of the other big works of modern Korean literature. So Whale is a genuinely, I think, quite unique novel against its peers. Very kind of an innovative novel too, and it does stand out from other works of modern Korean literature. There's nothing quite like it, right? There's nothing quite like it. It really has a literary ambition. Cheon's really kind of reaching for the stars here, right? It's a big literary novel about big topics, and but it's just at the same time, it's just so readable. Like it's just so readable. It is brilliant. And I don't think I've read anything that tackles Korean history quite the way Cheon does here, right? So obviously, there's a lot of writers, Hwang Sok-yong, Cho Chong-ne, Shin Kyung-suk, whoever, right, who tackle the Korea's 20th century, or different aspects of it, or different chunks of that history. But no one's really doing it the way he's doing it here. It's very bold, very imaginative. He blends, realism, fantasy, satire, and it creates it's a story that's very at once entertaining and just highly thought provoking. And one of the things that I appreciated about it most is that it has this very earthy body tone. It's full of vulgarity, the sort of working class, salt of the earth vulgarity, and I just found it a joy to read. Each character, they're just this. There's a succession of just wonderfully realized characters, such as the man with the scar, and a giant man called Kokjong, and just dozens more. And one of the other things that sets it apart from the other works of modern Korean literature is this use of magical realism. There isn't a huge amount of magical realism in Korean literature. Like I can think of maybe a couple other examples, but I'm trying to think off the top of my head now. But yeah, so this magical realism element. So obviously, this is a genre that combines elements of realism and fantasy. So like we think like 100 Years of Solitude, or Salman Rushdie's Midnight's Children, or something like that, right? And in Whale, Cheon uses this kind of device to create a world that is at once familiar and deeply strange, right? So, for example, Chun-hee communicates telepathically with a retired circus elephant. Sounds ridiculous, but it just works. It's great. There's a woman who controls an army of bees. There's a magical curse that changes the fates of many of the main characters. And the characters they're complex, they're well developed. These are real people, right, with real motivations and fears. And even though they seem sort of mythical, or like they're characters in a fable, like their motivations are human and real. Like you totally get why these people do the things that they do. And they seem more human almost um, than characters in something that's maybe more sort of straightforward, kind of realist in a way. Okay, so why should you read Whale? If I haven't sold it to you enough, let me just sell it to you a little bit more before we wrap up. So, offers very well written, very thought provoking. Offers a unique perspective on Korean culture, Korean history. Very entertaining, full of humor, full of suspense. A cast of memorable characters, series of strange and gripping events. Can be a challenging novel. I'm sure some people will think it's challenging. But it does explore all these important themes, like I mentioned, like gender roles, social class, nature of power, and but it is rooted in Korean history and experience. But I think it's very relatable. I would love to see a Scottish novel doing something like this. Wonder if there is. Maybe I'm going to look that up. But anyway, yeah. So Whale will definitely stay with you. Love it or hate it. It's definitely, you're not going to forget it quickly. Maybe I should give a word of caution, though. If you have a delicate sensibility, dare I say it, you might want to skip Whale. It's full of violence, sex, abuse, and like I said already, discusses life in frequently very vulgar terms. But I think a lot of people will like that about it. It's not. This isn't a novel that shies away from the unpleasant aspects of life. Let's say that, but just instead embraces and accepts this as part of life, right? And certainly, a significant part of Korean life in the 20th century. There was a lot of a lot of crazy things happening, right? Anyway, so in a way, this book it also offers kind of a primer on Korean history in the last century, right? And where you have things like Min Jin Lee's Pachinko, and it does kind of the same thing, but it's not going for a more realistic, a sort of more realistic lens, right? But Whale is doing the same kind of thing through fable and fairy tale and magic. I thought it was a huge achievement and just an absolute must read for anyone interested in Korean literature. I mean, it's really just one of the must read books if you're interested in Korean books. Okay, so let's move on. Okay, so we're going to move on from the this sort of broad fable-like sweep of Whale. So we're moving on from Whale to the everyday pressures of Modern Family. And so the exaggerations of ambition and appetite that drive the epic story of Whale, they kind of get shrunk down here, but we see all of the same things, right? We've got a job loss, we've got pride, we've got caring for family members, but instead of an epic story across Korean history, this one takes place inside a small apartment. So the scale changes here, but the questions about what survival costs stay the same. So with that shift in mind, let's turn to Modern Family and see how the forces of history are also fought over at the kitchen table. So Modern Family, the Korean title is Korongwa Kajok, and it was published in Korean in 2010 and translated into English by Park Kyung-lee, and was published in English in 2015. And I'm not that familiar with Park Kyung-lee. I don't think I've reviewed any of Park's other translations. And I should say this was published by White Pine Press. And White Pine Press do publish a lot of Korean literature and translation, but it's nearly all. Hold on, and most of the time they're doing like poetry collections. And I think for some reason, I don't know why, but this novel, I think this is one of the only novels, or did they do? I think did they do one more novel? I think it's the only novel they did, and it's nearly like they've done like 20 translations of poetry collections. They did one anthology of Korean fiction. I'd quite like to get that actually. And this is the only novel they've done. So I don't know why this is the only novel that they translated. Maybe the people at White Pine Press were a fan. I can't blame them. So yeah, so it was published in English in 2015, and unfortunately, sorry, let me just say as well, this book should be much better known. Much better known. Like this is a book that has genuine crossover, mainstream potential. So it's really a shame that that you hardly ever see this one getting talked about. So it really is a shame that this one isn't more well known. But then let's try and make it a little bit more well known. So okay, yeah. So it was published in English in 2015. And it gained, it was very popular in Korean, and then it became even more popular because there was a movie adaptation, and the movie title in English is called Boomerang Family, and you can actually find this on Netflix at the moment, so I recommend checking it out. But this novel is a great example of Cheon's style. It's a blackly comic drama, has the same sort of ribald humor and as a Whale does. And it's about three adult siblings who return home to live with their elderly mother after their lives all fall apart. And it's a deeply enjoyable piece of social commentary, again, filled with a cast of very engaging characters. So what is the plot and who are the main characters here? So we're introduced to Kim In-ho. Sorry, excuse me. So Kim In-mo is a 48-year-old failed film director, and he's grappling with a mountain of debts and a failed marriage, and he kind of resembles a character from like a character from like a Hong Sang-soo movie or something like that, right? Like a film director who's going through a divorce, and he's in lots of trouble. And like I said, Cheon is a screenwriter, so he knows this world quite well, right? And anyway, so Inmo's desperation leads him to sell everything he owns, from his 10-year-old secondhand car to essential kitchen appliances, his books, his video collection. And as the novel begins, he has nothing but a worn out mattress in a barren room. And he's even willing to go to extremes. He's contemplating selling his own body, but he thinks the prospects seem bleak for a balding 48-year-old man. So Inmo's not in a great situation as the novel begins, right? So with seemingly no way out of this unfortunate situation, he gets a timely call from his elderly mother, which becomes a lifeline for him. So, in an act of desperation, he decides to swallow his pride and return to his childhood home. However, as his bad luck continues, because he finds out that his return is not a solitary one. His older brother, Hanmo, who's known as Hammer due to his imposing presence, has been residing there since his release from prison. The surprise arrival then of their adulterous younger sister, Mion, who's fleeing a failed marriage after she was caught cheating on her husband. And she brings with her teenage daughter, Min Kyung. And so this adds another layer of difficulty to this already very dysfunctional family dynamic. So all three of these adult siblings, their lives are disasters. They've had a lot of problems, and they've all ended up back living with mum at the same time. And so there's a scorching summer ahead. At the beginning of summer, Hammer has very questionable personal hygiene habits, and so tensions begin to flare almost immediately. And so this book is really sort of testing their familial bonds, right? How will these three adult siblings get along with each other and with their poor, long-suffering mother? So how do the characters evolve through the story? So the novel is narrated in first person by Inmo, and it allows us to see we see the unfolding of events through his perspective, and that initially influences our perceptions of the other characters. So Hammer at first appears as this grotesque, flatulent figure, and we have little reason to think that he's a criminal, like a sort of petty crook, and that's how Inmo thinks of him, and we have little reason to think otherwise at the beginning. But as the story unfolds, Inmo is really full of, oh, woe is me. How did I could have been a hotshot film director, and I should be treading the red carpet at some fancy film festival. How did I end up stuck here with my dysfunctional siblings? But as the story continues, obviously we begin to see Inmo's very significant shortcomings and flaws, and we also see the other characters are maybe not quite as bad as they first appear, and you might find yourself reevaluating your initial judgment. So these other characters, we see them through Inmo, who's very hostile and jaded, but they will surprise us with their warmth and their humanity and their humility, and we come to realize that the rest of the family, they all sacrificed. They're quite a poor family, sort of rough working class background, and they all made sacrifices because their brother was the clever one, right? So they sort of made sacrifices to, help get him in this sort of fancy career, right? To be this sort of elite person moving in the circles of money and influence, right? But they've all made sacrifices to help get him there, and he just doesn't appreciate it. He's kind of blind, and oblivious to this. But anyway, as the family secrets are unveiled and more information about their past emerges, our perceptions of the very ungrateful Inmo undergo a significant transformation. So again, Modern Family stands out for me because of its blend of humor and family drama, There's some quite dark elements in the story too. And a lot of novels that I've reviewed, they're often about, there's things like government abuse and workers' exploitation and historical struggle. And, there's a lot of a lot of these kind of novels. But Modern Family does this, it's the sort of looks at the colorful lives of the underclass, right? How the underclass lives, and it's not judgmental. It's sort of celebratory and it's joyful. So you've got all of these, gangsters and prostitutes and bitter old ladies and teenagers with bad attitudes and people that work in the local hair salon and just this just the rough and tumble people of everyday life, right? And it's a bit of a departure from the usual serious literary fare, and in that sense, it's quite refreshing, actually. This sort of working class, rough humor is sometimes a little bit of a rarity in Korean literature available in English, but it adds a very distinctive flavor, and again, just deeply enjoyable. At times, it made me think of British TV shows like Only Fools and Horses or Shameless. Right, you have a working class family, and they're not criminals as such. They're just trying to get by. So maybe they're doing a bit of dodgy dealing, and they're cutting some corners, right? Or maybe something like Roddy Doyle, like the Irish writer Roddy Doyle, something like that. But anyway, the humor is again just very engaging, and I think makes it very accessible. I think this really is a book that should have a wider audience. Okay, beyond this sort of working class humor, is there anything deeper going on? So yes, absolutely. So it is in a way at times a sort of light-hearted family romp, right? So you have these scenes, these sort of comedic, like odd couple scenes of Inmo and Hammer, living together. These two middle-aged men, sort of past it middle-aged men, and they're forced to live in close proximity again. And it's kind of a comedy, right? It's like The Odd Couple, but there are obviously deeper things going on here, and it's really about the importance of family bonds. And again, this is another reason why I loved it. So many of the books these days, it's like deconstructing the family, or the family's evil, or all this other garbage, and so it's just fantastic to see this here. It's so good. So Inmo starts to realize, how selfish he is, how selfish he's been. He's ignored, his family, and he's sort of looked down on them, and he's kind of a douchebag, right? And so he tries to seek some redemption, and we get this message of putting family first, even when it entails painful sacrifice. And this really comes into the fore in the second half of the novel. And Chon just does just does a good job of balancing the humor with this more more with this deeper theme, right? And there isn't really a happy ending here, not in the conventional sense anyway, but it does show that even in the face of adversity and dysfunction, families can find a way to endure and rediscover the warmth and affection that binds them together. And Modern Family offers just a fantastically enjoyable exploration of those themes. So it's a comic yet dark family drama. It'll definitely keep you engaged with very well drawn characters. Chon's great at creating characters, lots of humor, unexpected plot developments, and just a fresh perspective on the complexities of family dynamics. I thought it was a very rewarding read, and you should absolutely add it to your reading list. So, okay, let's move on. All right. So, from the kitchen table, the next step is to ask what happens when those pressures stop being private problems and become the rules of the world. So, Homecoming takes the money and status anxieties of Modern Family and projects them into a near future version of South Korea, where employment defines citizenship and home is no guarantee of safety. The humor fades in this one, and the stakes become structural. but the human choices remain recognizable. So, if that trajectory set, let's look at Homecoming and see how a society decides who belongs and who is left out. So, the Korean title of Homecoming is Taegun, and Taegun translates to leaving work or getting off work in English. So, you'll often hear people in Korea refer to Taegun Shigan, right? Like time to go home, time to get out the office, right? But the Korean title, the English title, sorry, is Homecoming, and it's a well chosen title. So both of these titles are significant for the story, and in particular for the sort of final revelation, the final and the conclusion. So anyway, so it was translated into English by Jean Miseli, who again. I can't remember off the top of my head, but we've definitely reviewed more of Jean's translations. And it was published in English in 2015 as part of the Asia Publishers' excellent K fiction series, which obviously I've talked about a lot. And again, this is a very engaging story and one that is deeply reflective of Korean society. So we often see Cheon exploring modern Korean life, urbanization, the ever changing social landscape, and doing this in his bold and very vivid, colorful storytelling style. And we already know from the previous two books that he doesn't shy away from the gritty or the controversial, and instead he embraces these aspects, right? And we can again see that in this dystopian world that he depicts in Homecoming. And so this is a story that's very raw and resonates with the pulse of modern society, right? This is sort of modern society extrapolated a few years into the future. So it's a dystopian short story. We're in a future Seoul where extreme economic disparity and social decay have ravaged the South Korean capital. The story focuses on a father and his half Korean son, and they're part of the impoverished Blankets. And the Blankets are a group of underclass people who struggle to survive in this future society where only a very few are employed and the rest suffer in poverty. So, this is like post AI, post automation future where the robots are doing all the jobs, right? So the father here faces a very, heart-wrenching choice of whether he should sell his son, um, and or whether he should, he might be able to sell his son into, a better family, or maybe he can sell some of his organs. To make some money, right? This is also a world where adoption is a status symbol, right? So he can sell his son to a family or a couple that want to adopt a child as a kind of a status symbol. So that's a choice: sell his organs to make some money to keep his son, or sell his son to a rich family. So, I mean, this is a very bleak setting. And so the themes here are quite obvious. We've got wealth disparity and the obsession with office jobs. This is kind of maybe a more Korea specific element, and the human cost of unbridled capitalism. And the story culminates with a poignant twist. I won't let you tell you what the twist is, but it involves a child's apparently long lost grandfather. And the conclusion here is really sort of underscoring the sacrifices that people have made for economic stability. And again, that's sort of referring to Korean history. So anyway, it's not. There's a few things going on here, right? So we have this image of future Seoul where social decay and economic disparity have reached an extreme. And you can think of it as kind of like a dark mirror, like a Black Mirror, even like an episode of Black Mirror, showing the potential fallout of current trends in family dynamics and wealth distribution in Korea, right? So it's just taking these things that are problems at the moment and in the newspapers all the time just now, and just sort of looking at them like 10 years in the future. What does this look like if we take it to its extreme? And so it's very raw. It's an unfiltered portrayal of a capitalist society gone badly wrong. And it's a stark warning, really, about this path that Korea seems to be treading. So it's a very direct, in a way, it's a kind of brutal story. It has these themes like human organ trade and the extreme ruthlessness of bureaucracy. And so it offers a very punchy commentary on contemporary Korea and a potential future Korea. This is the possible future if current social trends in Korea continue unchecked. So it's really critiquing the intense materialism, the stark divide between the rich and the poor, the plight of this father and son. This is a society where only a very small fraction enjoy the privileges of employment and a decent life. That's just a direct commentary on the growing economic divide and the obsession with status in Korea. And Cheon uses this narrative to highlight the absurdity and the tragedy of a society where the dream of a stable office job becomes the only means of survival. So it's kind of a wake-up call, sort of telling you to, sort of urging you to reflect on the direction in which society is heading. It's a critique, it's a warning, and it's very thought-provoking. So again, Cheon doesn't tie up the loose ends here, just leaves you sort of reflecting on the broader implications of the story. And this is really about Korea's extreme work culture, right? What personal sacrifices do we make in the pursuit of economic stability? Why does it have to be like this? And we lose personal connections because of this sort of the social cost of relentless capitalism. And even the title, so again, I won't say too much here, but it becomes very ironic, right? And it sort of implies that the possibility of a normal, balanced life in this skewed society is impossible. Yeah, right. So anyway, I'm going to wrap up there. So thank you for watching this free book roundup review of Cheon Myeong-kwan. Hopefully, we'll get some more of his stories or novels translated sometime soon. As far as I can tell, I don't think there's anything on the horizon, unfortunately. But hopefully, I'm surprised after the success of Whale. I think Whale did very well. It was nominated for big prizes and got a lot of big reviews, and it seems to have done well. I'm surprised that didn't maybe kickstart a few more of his books getting published, but who knows? So anyway, thanks for watching. Let me know if you've read any of these books. Let me know if you have any recommendations for future reviews. And remember to hit the like button and subscribe and do all of that other stuff. And take care. Thanks for watching. I'm going to go and have some breakfast. And later on today, I might try and do a roundup of Park Min-gyu and or Kim Young-ha. So take care, everybody, and I'll see you in the next one.